Would you still collect if nobody ever saw it? No posts, no likes, no followers, just you, the figures, and silence. Because that's how it started for me. Before hashtags and before shelfies, before adult collecting was even a thing. Collecting was private, quiet, almost secret. We didn't really start collecting, we ended up collecting. One figure at a time, one thing led to another, and next thing you know, we're all in. These days, people plan collections like they're starting a brand. I'm looking at Marvel Legends now, or I'm thinking about starting a DC multiverse shelf. And that's fine, but it's different. And that's why I keep asking myself, and maybe you do too, would I still collect if nobody ever saw it? Would you? Stick around. Collecting was quiet. Whenever we first started, collecting wasn't about building a brand or getting attention. We did it because it reminded us of something. Our childhood, our favorite stories, our imagination. Sometimes it was a little bit embarrassing and we really didn't tell our coworkers about it. We were lucky if we had one or two friends who really got it. But that didn't stop us. We hunted, we posed, and we displayed in silence. I'm 43 years old and I walk that fine line of knowing what it's like to not have a cell phone and not think anything of it. That's just how it was. Once you left the house and nobody could see you out the window no more, it was anyone's guess when you might come back. Might be today, might be tomorrow. Who knows? I'll pass the message, and that's all I can really do right now. When we did something, it was in silence. We didn't take pictures of our Big Macs. We didn't GPS our location. We didn't show people anything we was doing. Until this day, I'm still like that. I remember very clearly when collecting was something that we did almost like on the low. The people who lived with you obviously knew, but even then we kept them at arm's length. For the most part, it wasn't even something I really talked about. I never really felt like it was something that other people would understand. And to be honest with you, I probably didn't even know why I was doing it. I just knew that it was something I did. It wasn't until about the COVID era where I really started to feel comfortable with who I was as a collector. I remember being a little bit embarrassed about being in the toy aisle. I remember thinking that somebody's mom was looking at me funny like, what's he doing here? Alone. I remember pretending that everything I bought was for my son, even though it wasn't. So for me to sit here and tell you that I was collecting for validation would be a lie. There was no way that I was even comfortable having that conversation with certain people. None of my peoples really knew that I collected anything because most of them didn't even come to my house like that. I didn't even know that I was collecting at that time, but I knew that I liked these things and I knew that I wanted them. I never really had anyone to share any of that with. And to keep it real, I always just looked at it like it was my thing. And I was cool with that. Let's make this very clear. Iron Man paved the way for the MCU to make these Marvel characters household names. The Marvel movies are really what made the comic realm mainstream today. And now we can have a passive conversation about the Avengers or the Fantastic Four, but that wasn't always the case. And if you think that this is niche now, well, let me tell you, what a time to be alive, because we used to be on the low with this. Now, it's everywhere. Today, toy collectors have it easy because a lot of things have changed. In 2025, collecting isn't just a hobby, it's content, it's part of pop culture. And I love that. Anytime that something becomes mainstream is gonna bring new energy, new collectors, and new creativity to the hobby. But with visibility comes pressure. Now you're collecting for the algorithm instead of yourself. And that's the issue with things becoming mainstream because now people are collecting for different reasons than they used to be. FOMO is a relatively new concept if you really think about it. When figures and toys were designed and marketed to kids, they were always in stock. Companies knew that parents were throwing these figures in the cart last minute under duress, so there was no way that they were going to start toy hunting and pre-ordering for little kids. That just wasn't going to happen. Those figures and those toys needed to be in stock and on the shelf when mommy passed by. But that's not really the case anymore. Once these companies stopped pretending to market to kids and started going straight for adult collectors, they started making us play adult games. A lot of the games that the community consistently complains about is really a direct result of pop culture. That's a side effect of things becoming mainstream. Posting your displays and getting online validation is also something that's been grown, but that really wasn't a thing like that when I start to think back. Nobody really cared that your Captain America had an epic pose, and to be honest, you probably weren't even that interested in showing them anyway. That was our thing. That was something that we came home to and we felt at peace with. Now I see people at lunchtime with a Thor on their desk taking pictures, and I love to see stuff like that, but I can't help to think to myself like, damn, We came a long way. But what does that lead us to? Now we got people who are not even collectors but know that you are, and they trying to find some common ground. And they asking you questions like, oh, that new Spider-Man movie is lit. I know you got all the figures already. It kind of went from something that we did sparingly in our own time to something that now we feel obligated to do because people expect it. Now that's your area of expertise, and now you got to have all of them. Now we check our feeds and we constantly getting bombarded by pictures of people in other countries getting figures before us. Or figure review is showing us something 2 months before it's even released, and we didn't even have a chance to sit back and think like, why am I even doing this? We just worried that the world is pushing past us. I remember when it wasn't really like that and I had to go out of my way to find things. It might sound kind of archaic, but it was a lot more stress-free back then. There was nothing to really compare against, so there was never this feeling that you was ahead or you was behind. Wherever you were with your collecting, that's where you were, and that's what you knew. Performance versus passion. When collecting becomes a performance, we risk losing what made it personal to us in the first place. In 2025, posting a new figure or getting your hands on a new figure can actually feel more important than actually enjoying it. Real talk, I can't even tell you how many times I've chased down figures, gotten them, and felt nothing. Didn't open them, didn't even care. The dopamine fades faster every time. If we're not careful about our intent, things can get out of hand real quick. Collecting starts off with yourself and what makes you happy. But once you start looking at Facebook posts and community posts and IG pages, you start to want to level up real quick. It can really go from just internally collecting to being in an invisible competition with people who have no idea that you're even alive. If we start collecting what it is that we see and not what it is that we love, then it really goes from passion to performance. At that point, we're chasing releases that other people want. And it's not because we want them, but it's because we don't want to fall behind. Now think to yourself real quick, when was the first time that not wanting to fall behind became a thing? It wasn't when you first started. When you first started, you already had your eyes on something and you already had a general idea of what it is that you wanted to do. But when was the first time that you said to yourself like, yo, if I don't get this figure right now, I'm gonna be asked out? That's the day right there that you really fell into the matrix. For me, I wanted a flash figure, a reverse flash figure in the Zoom. I was so naive that I thought that that was really gonna be it. But that was the idea that I had in my brain. Then after that, it was Captain Cold and Heatwave from my DC side. Then you guys already know I saw Daredevil when he became my first Marvel Legend, and then came Punisher. So right there, I started building my Speed Force section and my Defenders section. And that was all off the cuff right there. I had never seen anybody post any pictures of their collections up to that point. I didn't know or care about pinless tech. I didn't know or care about upcoming releases. It was really simple back then, and it never felt like a race. If anything, it felt like I was building my refuge, brick by brick, or better yet, figure by figure. With that being said, once I started joining Facebook groups and collector communities, I started picking up figures as they was coming out. So that's where the collection started to grow out of control, because now these characters are going all over the place. It was way deeper than just the Speed Force and the Defenders. And that's exactly where my collection diluted from what I respected and cared about and turned into a numbers game. My turning point. I had to hit a moment, and maybe you did too, where I realized that I was collecting just to keep up, and that's where it kind of got whacked for me. Yeah, I had the new releases, I made the pre-orders, and I'm not gonna get left behind. I made the mandatory photo post so everybody knows I got the figure, but you know what? The joy really wasn't there. I wasn't getting that same feeling that I got when I finally got that reverse Flash in my hand. When I got that season 1 Flash, that was epic. But my 4th Wolverine didn't really hit the same way. I'm the type that picks up on stuff real quick, so I had to ask myself, what am I doing? Once I realized that I was all over the place, I had to rein it in, and I started making rules. I had to red pill myself and unplug my brain from the matrix and see collecting for what it's really about. It's about me. So I pulled back and I stopped showing pickups in the halls, and I started showing only things that I had completed that I had been working on. I really stopped trying to win the who got it first game. And in that quiet space, I reconnected with what made me fall in love with this hobby in the first place. That's exactly when I realized that I wanted my collection to be theme-based over just characters or heroes and villains. I have teams too, but my bread and butter is my themes. And I feel like that's what really separates my collection from a lot of other collections that I've seen. My room is broken down into sections for the most part. X-Men vs. Avengers, Phoenix Saga, Marvel vs. Street Fighter, Infinity War, Spider-Verse. Those are the sections that mean the most to me, and those are the ones I'm really trying to work on whenever I'm collecting. If the releases that they have planned happen to line up with what it is that I have going on in my room, then I'm all for it. But if they don't, then I'm gonna have to let that pass. And I can't let some dude taking a picture in his basement sway me from that. The reason that I really don't sell figures like that is really because everything I get is something that goes in one of my themes. I don't really make last minute placeholder purchases, and I don't buy figures I don't have a plan for. When I build on my themes, I'm building a world that I've always envisioned. And that's way more satisfying and permanent than whatever the internet says is hot this week. You are who you are when no one's watching. There's a question that applies to more than just collecting. Who are you when nobody's watching? When there's no likes, no comments, and no followers to impress? What do you choose? What do you keep? Who do you love? Just for you. My analytics tell me that most of my subs are my age and even older. Most of you have been in the game since Toy Biz or Power of the Force or the original Secret Wars. You didn't really need anyone's approval back then, and you still don't. But I'm wondering, how has your collecting changed from that point where you used to just collect for yourself? When you were the only set of eyes that looked at and appreciated your collection, was it more peaceful? Or do you prefer the way that things are now? Private joy is real joy. There's this kind of comfort that comes with collecting that doesn't really need to be broadcast. Posing your figures just right and setting them down for a moment and just appreciating what it is that you have. Digging out your old bins and remembering where you got that first figure from. Rearranging your shelf because you wanted to and not because you felt pressured to. That's real right there, and that's the core. That's the reason why we all do this at the end of the day. So I'll ask again, would you still collect if nobody ever saw it? If the answer is yes, then you've already won, because that means your collection isn't a performance. It's a part of you. I've been doing this way before it was cool, way before it was content, and way before it was for somebody else. I've collected in the shadows and I've collected in the spotlight, and I can tell you this from experience. The best part of the hobby isn't out there. It's in here. And no audience, no platform, and no trend can ever take that away from you. I appreciate you watching. And if you've been collecting since the quiet days, then drop a comment and let me know what it was like for you, because I see you. And if you're newer to the hobby, just make sure that your reasons for collecting are yours and yours alone. Feel free to check out the rest of the More Than Just Toy series. And remember, it's not about what they think, it's about what it means. Until next time, peace.